What if Canada had joined the American Revolution? Imagine a world where the northern neighbor of the U.S. became part of the rebellion that shaped modern America. In 1775, as the American colonies fought for independence, revolutionaries hoped Canada would join them. The Continental Congress even called it the 14th colony, but that never happened. So why didn't the revolution spread north? Why did Canada stay loyal to Britain while the 13 colonies broke free? Today on History Mysteries, we uncovered the untold story of why the American Revolution stopped at Canada's doorstep and how history could have been very different. Before we explore why Canada didn't join the revolution, we need to understand what it was like in the 1770s. Canada had been under British control for just over a decade after the Seven Years' War. To secure loyalty, Britain passed the Quebec Act, allowing French Canadians to keep their language, religion, and legal traditions. Instead of resenting British rule, many saw it as a stable and tolerant. Unlike the American colonies, which had over 2 million people, Canada's population was tiny, around 90,000 in Quebec and a few thousand more in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. French Canadians, the majority, had no strong connection to American revolutionary ideals. British Loyalists in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland remained loyal to the Crown. Indigenous nations had alliances with the British, wary of American expansion. Canada's economy relied on fur trading, fishing, and British trade. Unlike the American colonies, which had large cities and diverse industries, Canada was dependent on Britain for stability. As the American Revolution gained momentum, the revolutionaries believed Canada would be a natural ally. They saw British rule as oppressive and assumed Canadians, especially the French, would share their desire for freedom. But was that really the case? The Continental Congress hoped to bring Canada into the rebellion, seeing it as a key strategic partner. In 1775, they even invited French Canadians to send representatives to the Continental Congress, promising them the same rights and freedoms the 13 colonies were fighting for. However, most Canadians ignored the offer. They had little reasons to trust the Americans. When diplomacy failed, the revolutionaries turned to military actions. In late 1775, General Richard Montgomery and Benedict Arnold led an invasion of Canada, hoping to spark an uprising. They believed that once American troops arrived, locals would rally to their cause. But the reality was different. Most French Canadians remained neutral, and British forces, reinforced by local militias, repelled the American attack at the Battle of Quebec. Montgomery was killed. Arnold was wounded, and the invasion collapsed. Despite the American hopes, Canada remained under British control. But why didn't its people join the revolution like 13 colonies? Several key factors kept Canada loyal to the Crown. The majority of Canadians' population were French-speaking Catholics who had lived under British rule since 1763. Surprisingly, many preferred British rule over the Americans. Why? Because the Quebec Act of 1774 allowed them to keep their language, religion, and legal system, something the British had granted, but the Protestant American revolutionaries might not. They had little connection to the American colonies, culturally or politically, and many saw the revolution as an English versus English conflict, not their fight. British rule in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland remained strong because many settlers were British loyalists, former soldiers, or immigrants who had no reason to rebel. The British Navy controlled the Atlantic, keeping supply lines open and crushing any chance of an uprising. Local militias were loyal to Britain and helped repel American forces. Canada's economy relied heavily on fur trade, fishing, and British markets. Unlike the American colonies, which had a diverse economy, Canada depended on British trade and military protection. Breaking from Britain could have severely damaged Canada's economy. Canada's harsh winters and long supply routes made it difficult for Americans to invade and hold territory. The British had strong fortifications in Quebec and Halifax, making military conquest nearly impossible. The combination of French-Canadian neutrality, British Loyalist support, economic dependence on Britain, and military geography meant that Canada had no strong reason to rebel. Instead of joining the revolution, it became a British stronghold in North America. With Canada secured, the British could now focus entirely on crushing the American rebellion. As the American rebels failed to gain support in Canada, Britain moved quickly to reinforce its control and prevent any uprising. The Battle of Quebec saw British troops, local militias, and harsh winter conditions force the Americans to retreat. With no local support and suffering from disease and starvation, the American invasion collapsed. The result? Britain's smart policies, military strength, and local alliances kept Canada loyal. After the Revolution, it became a safe haven for British loyalists fleeing the new United States. With the failure of the American invasion and Britain's strong grip on Canada, the Revolution ended with a divided North America. The United States gained independence, but Canada remained a British stronghold. This had lasting effects on both nations. After the war, over 40,000 Loyalists fled to Canada, reshaping its demographics. Many settled in Nova Scotia, Quebec, and modern-day Ontario, bringing British traditions and strengthening loyalty to the Crown. The influx of Loyalists led Britain to create New Brunswick as a separate colony. The war hardened the border, reinforcing Canada's British identity while the U.S. developed its own path. Future conflicts emerged, including the War of 1812, where American forces again tried and failed to invade Canada. Canada remained part of the British Empire, eventually gaining independence peacefully in 1867. The U.S. and Canada took different political and cultural paths, but their histories remain deeply linked. But what if Canada had joined the revolution? How would North America look today? Let's explore a few possibilities. If Canada had become the 14th colony, it might have merged into the U.S., making it a much larger country from the start. British loyalists might have fled elsewhere, weakening Britain's influence in North America even earlier. Control of Canada would have given the U.S. a huge geographic and economic advantage, securing resources like fur, timber, and fisheries. The War of 1812 might never have happened, or Britain might have lost its last foothold in North America sooner, and without British control, Canada as we know it today wouldn't exist. Instead of gaining peaceful independence in 1867, Canada's regions might have been absorbed into U.S. states. The U.S. might have faced less British resistance in later years, leading it to an even stronger Anglo-American alliance earlier in history. The failed invasion of Quebec sealed Canada's fate. It remained British, shaping North America as we know it today. But what if history had gone differently? Would Canada be part of the U.S., or was staying loyal the right choice? Tell us in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe to History Mysteries, and turn on notifications for more fascinating stories. Thanks for watching. Stay curious.